Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to share what is my favorite space vehicle and why it is. Now, it's not the Starship or Falcon 9, even though those are up there, but it is the Space Shuttle, developed and produced by NASA. Let's start with the history of the Space Shuttle. The Space Shuttle is a low Earth orbit spacecraft that was operational from 1981 till 2011, with the official name of the Space Transportation System, or STS. This program was originally one of many plans all the way back in 1969 for a reusable spacecraft, but the Space Shuttle, or STS, was the only one that got funded. The components of the Space Shuttle program was the orbital vehicle that was built by Boeing and Rockwell International, now known as Collins Aerospace. An interesting tidbit is I'm working with an engineer currently that back in the day during the operations of the Space Shuttle, his job was to receive the radios after each mission, break them down, and retest every single component of the radios that Collins built, or at the time, Rockwell International. So, what he has told me was not only did he take the radios and break them down after each flight, but Boeing did the same thing. So NASA and Boeing disassembled the entire orbital vehicle, or the Space Shuttle, after each flight, which probably is one of the reasons why it costs $450 to $500 million per launch. The second component is the recoverable solid rocket boosters, or SRBs, that was built and maintained by Tech Systems, and the external fuel tank was built by Lockheed and Martin Marito, that was merged to become Lockheed Martin in 1995. The first 4 flights was conducted in 1981, with STS-2 being flown by Joe H. Eagle and Richard H. Truly on November 14th, 1981. After the successful 4 test flights, it led into the first operational flight of STS-5 in 1982, with a total of 6 shuttles being built over its entire operational lifetime. The 4 initial operational shuttles were Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, and Atlantis. And the 6th and final shuttle being built in 1991, called the Endeavour, to replace the Challenger after its accident on January 28, 1986. During the operational time of the Space Shuttle, it flew and it helped assemble the International Space Station due to it being the only spacecraft at the time that could launch and lift the components of the space station. Along with, it launched and did a repair mission of the Hubble Space Telescope, which helped expand our knowledge of the universe. The last event that happened during the shuttle's lifespan was unfortunately the destruction of Columbia during re-entry on February 1st, 2003. The remaining shuttles would continue to operate for an additional 8 years until Atlantis in July 21st, 2011, the program would end. And after the shuttle was retired, unfortunately, the US government and the US in general did not have a rocket capable of sending astronauts to the International Space Station for the next 9 years, and had to rely on the Russian rocket program in Russia to send American astronauts to the International Space Station. Fortunately, that relying on Russia rockets ended in May of 2020 with the SpaceX Demo 2 launch that sent the first 2 astronauts back to the International Space Station from US soil in 9 years. There is one last company that was involved in the shuttle program that worked behind the scenes that really doesn't get much recognition. It was IBM. They were responsible for the flight computers, flight and communication software for the shuttle program. Which brings to the second and final reason why the Space Shuttle is my favorite and will always remain my favorite. A gentleman named Robert W. Wright And what makes him stand out was what he did for the Navy prior to him joining IBM in the mid 70s. He was one of 6 to 8 people who helped stand up the Naval Astronautics Group in Point Mugu, California, which has become a core component of Space Force now. One of the missions of the Naval Astronautics Group was to use Doppler radar effect to pinpoint U.S. ships while at sea. And this is a big deal because this was all the way back in the late 50s to early 60s when they were doing this. So Doppler effect was brand new, and they were leading the research and development of the Doppler effect. And in 1976, Lieutenant Wright would retire from the Navy and then join IBM. 3 or 4 years later, he would be in Houston, Texas, working on the communication and security of the shuttle software. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find much public records on Wright. And when I reach out to IBM, it's been so long, it's been 40 years, so they could not give me his work history, really, at the time, unfortunately. Now, most of you have probably guessed or came really close of why Robert Wright is so special to me. It is because he is my grandfather. And he only got to see the beginning of the Space Shuttle program due to illness, where he passed away in 1987 when I was 2 years old. To leave the video on a much happier note, I will tell you one of his dreams. And that dream was to see man land on Mars. And with how things are going today, and this year, and this decade, we just might be able to see it in our lifetime.